Welcome to Free Human, a podcast where we explore the intersection of creativity, self-actualization, and the Dharmic path. I'm Indigo, a Dharma coach, medicine woman, and multidisciplinary artist. I guide humans through the process of remembering their true self so they can live in alignment with their soul. You are art that breathes. Your life is art. It's your intimate relationship with self and the universe. Every feeling, thought, movement, experience, and creation is your art. Your soul is singing a song, and the notes are weaving through the universe. To sing your soul song is to be free. This podcast is the fire circle in my Dharma garden, a place where we share our soul stories and medicine, nurture our curiosity, and weave our prayers into the collective. Thank you for being here. I am very grateful. This is the beginning, a new path on my journey. A journey I have dreamt about for so long, of healing the voice of my inner child, of allowing my deep, unending curiosity and love for soul connections to flourish, an experiential place for my soul to learn and evolve, a place to allow my current musings on reality to flow off my tongue, and a place that will hold the truth of my being and a living blueprint for my children. Because I wish I would have truly been able to see and understand my mother and grandmother. Because I love my children fiercely. Speaking of lineage, of history, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever asked yourself from what parts and lenses do you tell the story of your childhood? Of your past? Also, does it feel static or fluid to you? To me, our history, our story, is a living, breathing, non-linear tapestry that we are always weaving. As I write and speak the story of my childhood over time, I can see how it is forever evolving. It's like a tapestry made of prisms. I look around at all the different angles and see all the different perspectives. I go into these little triangles and change and expand the stories inside of them. When I do this, the entire tapestry shifts. The reflections of light change. There is a ripple effect across my entire past, present, and future self. I want to take a moment to explain parts and lenses and how they make up how we understand, interact with, and tell the story of our life. These are two very important components of my map of the universe. Parts work, which is also known as internal family systems therapy, is a psycho-spiritual model that at the root is helping you have an embodied experience of your true self. Your true self remains untarnished despite what has happened to you in life. And you have an entire family of parts or subpersonalities that have developed and grown with you as you have gone through life. Parts work allows you to build a relationship between your true self and your inner parts so they can unburden, heal, and evolve. Parts work allows you to begin to see and interact with the complexity within self, the multiplicity. I personally feel shamanism to be the original parts work. I practice a shamanic, somatic form of parts work. And I weave with parts work and multiple other modalities and frameworks that create my own unique map for interacting with, alchemizing, and evolving myself and soul. There is so much to say on this, but I'm going to leave it here for now. Okay, so let's talk about lenses now. I see them as the pieces of glass we examine, see, and express our life through. I think it's helpful to think of all the lenses as being in a kaleidoscope. Imagine that there are 20 lenses or pieces of glass within a kaleidoscope, even though there are many more than that. Each of these lenses actually distorts your vision and expression of self. It makes it where you can't see clearly. Your soul is free of distortions. It sits behind all these lenses. The view through a kaleidoscope is still very beautiful, even though it's not clear. I feel like this is important to say. Things such as institutions, work, family, partners, friends groups, and all the ism belief systems, capitalism, colonialism, and many more, inform the lenses we construct and look through. Because we interact with and absorb information and energy from these things and people, they innately condition us. Conditioning is the process of training or accustoming a person or animal to behave in a certain way or to accept certain circumstances. This is unconsciously happening all the time by the very nature of us being immersed in the world. The earth is a womb, a matrix, which is simply an environment or material in which something develops. There are so many layers to cultures and paradigms that I can't possibly unpack that here. But I do want to touch on the overall dominant culture paradigm, which is also sometimes referred to as the overculture. It blankets everything. It conditions you whether you are aware of it or not. Conditioning is actually a natural process of life. It's so pervasive that most cannot even see it. It's like asking yourself to see a piece of food on your face with your own eyes. Conditioning is not innately bad or good. You have been conditioned into the things you love. What feels helpful is to begin to look at each piece of programming that you have acquired and to ask yourself if it is fundamentally rooted in fear or love. If rooted in fear, in separation, it is distorting your perception of self and reality. To decondition yourself is to remove the lenses from your kaleidoscope, which are made up of the fear-based beliefs, ideas, patterns, behaviors that have gathered on top of your true self. This is an important part of remembering who you actually are, of seeing your true self, of seeing your dharmic path. It's in the process of unbecoming that we become who we actually are. The way that you view and interact with yourself in the world is through your internal family of parts. And each part has its own set of behavioral and somatic patterns, ancestral ties, preferences, ideas, programming, energy, shadow, masks, and more. Each part has its own way of being in the world. When you get to know, heal, and work with your parts, this is inner child work, and begin to decondition yourself, removing lenses in your kaleidoscope, you are going to be able to perceive your reality in new ways, in more multifaceted, non-linear ways. Add shadow work, masculine and feminine energy work, archetype work, with cultivating a deep and reverent relationship with your soul and your life. The story of your life is going to drastically change. you enter a more prolific state of perpetual becoming. You begin to solidly walk the path of the soul, the Dharmic path. Eric Godsey introduced me to the term Dharma artist, and it resonated so deeply with me that I have taken it into my being. In the simplest way, a Dharma artist is a human that has oriented themselves to living through their true self. They are actively coming in contact with their blueprint, and they are expressing through it. That still seems sort of abstract though, right? Like, what does that really mean? Let's start with the word orient. To orient yourself towards your true self means that you practice identifying where you are living through ego, through fear, through separation, and actively move or alchemize into a space of living through soul, love, and in service to unity. A soul's blueprint is like a set of instructions or its deep patterning that is unique to the individual that leads to the building of the soul to be a certain way and offer specific gifts. When you are oriented towards your soul and actively working with your blueprint, you are in essence walking your Dharmic path. Okay, I want to pause here as an artist and creator and share some of my thoughts on the creation of this first solo podcast episode. This has been quite the experience to create. I was a visual artist for 20 years. I wrote almost nothing during that time. I've historically been verbally underexpressed. This journey from being afraid to speak almost my entire life to speaking and expressing from a calm, embodied place took me so long. I have an unexplainable drive to speak my truth. It has been the thing that was so scary that I couldn't get anywhere near it until it was time to. It happened in divine timing. The Joseph Campbell quote, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek," haunted me. I knew I would eventually enter this cave. And then it happened. It was super subtle. I began to take the steps towards the cave. Nobody believes me now, but just 5 years ago, I couldn't even write complete sentences about my life experiences. It would come out as some sort of somatic poem. It felt very inward-facing. I realized at some point that I just needed to keep writing, as I felt everything begin to rapidly shift. I was in the deepest descent of my life. You know, the one that initiates you into the rest of your life. I think I wrote myself down into the rock bottom of the descent and then up and out into a completely new person over and over and over. When my writing began to get clearer, without me knowing it at the time, I began to give each one of my parts inside a voice. They had waited so long to speak that it completely took over my life. I was writing for 6+ hours a day, one part after another. I was unconsciously doing parts work and ecstatic dancing, and through this, I was organically learning alchemy. I began to feel the potency of writing. I would start as one person and end as another. I just kept going, and because I wrote for years without an agenda whatsoever, what happened is that I began to see my unique style emerge organically. But more importantly, I became an alchemist. I had never written for any purpose other than to move through my own internal landscape. My writing was mask-free. I did not give a shit about grammar, the outside world, or anything for that matter. and I still don't. I'm not a professional writer, although I do call myself a writer. I could feel how my sentences were following the internal somatic experience I was having through my writing. I could see how I was weaving storytelling and wisdom together. This continued until it began to reveal much more than that. My writing was taking me to my dharmic path. It was leading me very strongly to where I was supposed to be, where I was always meant to be. I began to see how I created my reality through writing, and that is when I transitioned into a creator being. Writing is magic, real magic. I deeply understand this. Okay, so back to where I am right now, here, writing this first solo episode. Why has this not been easy? First off, starting a podcast is the next step in my journey of self-actualization. It feels big. This is an altar for me. I'm showing up to the altar to speak from deep within my heart. Writing this episode has been an incredibly deep, multi-week transformational journey. Every time I write, I change. Every time I turn the microphone on, I change. I evolve. This is a very powerful alchemical tool. When you show up in your heart space with another human with a loose idea of what you are going to talk about, you are saying to yourself, I trust you deeply. I love you. You are beautiful. Your unique expression of self, physically, energetically, emotionally, mentally, it's all beautiful and welcome here. Your consciousness is welcome. Your perspectives are welcome. I can feel how deep I have arrived within myself in a way that I could not have predicted, and it feels more beautiful than I could have ever imagined, and that feels like a gift. And I can feel how much I will evolve through this journey, and that is equally as beautiful. The challenging part of creating this first solo podcast episode is trying to formally write and orient you to an ever-evolving map that I work and live through in the intention of the space. If not, it feels like you just arrived at my house without even knowing who I am and why you are here. To take how I think, work, and navigate the world and filter it only through written word feels so limiting. I had to hold space for me to examine each word, define it for myself, and examine how it overlaps with all of these other aspects of myself. It feels like I'm looking at my map, my tapestry, and trying to explain just a few pieces of it that I feel to be the most relevant in order to start this podcast. I had to hold space for my parts. I stretched myself, I clarified myself, humbled myself, and ultimately had to find acceptance in what I wrote because writer is not my primary title. So I find myself needing to hold more compassion for myself, that my attempt at writing in any given moment is enough. Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about my map, which feels like a prismatic tapestry that I have constructed, which is my own understanding of and interaction with myself and the universe. It's made up of what I understand through taking life into my body, which is a template, and the principles that are a guiding force to who I will become. This has many layers to it, and it lives within me. One thing I want to highlight is, this feels edgy for me to say, that at the core, I have constitutionally built myself to be a certain solid and fluid way. The best way I can describe this is that through orienting through the lens of my soul, I do not describe to ideologies. I have a solid foundation of how I operate, but it is very open to evolving at any given moment. I feel very solid and very fluid. I speak my truth, and my truth isn't the truth. I am not here to convince, to persuade, to judge. I'm not an arbiter of truth. My personal filtration system is honed and oriented, and I am fine-tuning it as I expand. I sit as much as I can outside of the overculture's energy and ideologies. I intentionally try not to operate through the lens of separation, but I am a bridge. I live in this time, now. So I weave throughout everything. The in-between is a place. I walk in the cracks, which is where the wind blows new realities into being. One day I was walking my path, traversing the grasslands on the map, and I came to a new land. I don't know what to call it other than the land of Dharma. I earned my way to this land by allowing enough fear to hemorrhage out of me. Peace, pleasure, ease, grace, joy, and ecstasy are some of the substrates that make up this land. I started to play in this land, and eventually I anchored it into my template. I had anchored enough love into my vessel. There is so much to this, but in its simplest form, I deeply understand that I am a creator being. I am art that breathes. I am able to hold and expand my light. I am able to dissect, fine-tune, evolve, and weave with my light and medicine. My petals perpetually unfurl. I am the sun, the warmth, the ground, the sky, the everything and nothing. Every minute of my day, I am a creator being. Every minute, I am listening, creating, which is also speaking, co-weaving, and being. The whisper isn't something that I search for or have to get quiet to hear. I feel merged with it. It moves through me. I am in my soul stream. I am in devotion to my spirit, to my path. I don't think there is such thing as right or wrong when it comes to how you view and interact with the mystery. I don't have the answer. I just know what feels true for me, and that will forever be evolving. And I don't think we are supposed to have the same maps and vehicles. We are supposed to create unique ways of understanding and interacting with the universe. What holds me is what has moved through my body and soul because of my map, my embodied gnosis. I pray that what I know and share creates more interbeing instead of separation, more love than fear. My map was built thanks to many beautiful humans that braved so much to bring things through them. My map is continually being influenced by things like somatic parts work, shamanism, Jungian psychology, universal principles, earth medicine. I can't possibly name them all. But most of all, it's informed by my life experience, my body, by the goddess within me. I'm experiencing, alchemizing, integrating, remembering every single day. My body is a template. The map lives within my body. I use this map to non-linearly heal and expand myself, and to work with the humans that trust me to guide them. There is so much complexity to the path, yet it also feels so simple. When it comes to Dharma, if I ask myself the question, Why do I do what I do? The answer is because it is what I'm here to do. The answer doesn't have anything else to it. I just know. I am touching up against my lack of free will on a daily basis. I can also feel how I have choice, but at this point, I don't even wish for more choice. I can clearly see that no matter what direction I go, I end up in the same place. It's a confirming and comforting feeling. It also makes me laugh. I definitely feel like a moth to a flame. What is so wild about Dharma is that I found it long ago in retrospect, because it has always been with me. I look back and forward and nowhere at the same time. So here we are at the point where I'm going to tell a portion of the Dharmic story of my life. I can't tell the whole story because it would be the length of a book. I'm telling this story so you can get a glimpse into what it looks like to work non-linearly with the story of your life through more lenses than just trauma and a mono-character story. So you can feel what it's like for the history of your life to be fluid. This feels like my edge to tell this story. It feels like the most seen I will be. I'm telling it because a large part of my Dharma is to document and teach how to be a Dharma artist. I'm a Dharma muse, as in I teach through the artful exploration and documentation of self. I am easing into being seen. When we travel back, so to speak, into the previous time periods of our life, we are able to identify, heal, work with, and evolve the family of younger parts that live within ourselves. These parts are alive in us now. When we travel back, we also get to go on a Dharma scavenger hunt. I take a beautiful hand-woven basket with me and pick up the pieces of my story that are needed for me to understand why I'm here and how to walk my path. All the pieces of who you actually are already within you. The template is already there. You just have to learn how to see it. Okay, so here we go. When I was 5, I distinctly remember sitting at my desk in kindergarten during snack time, and I was the last one to receive the snack. As I was waiting, I got really nervous inside because as I was looking around, I was seeing ham and milk being placed at the desk of each child, and I didn't eat or drink either of those things. The teacher came over to my desk last and said, "Here is your special snacks of peanuts, raisins, and soy milk." I thought to myself in that moment, everyone doesn't eat like me? Confusion washed through my system, and I thought, I am different than everyone in this room. This might seem arbitrary, but it was extremely important to my Dharmic path. My little self at the time thought, I am different. It was my first memory of experiencing what it felt like to be ahead of my time, but I didn't know that that was what it was until I was older. It was the first moment that I was holding my personal beliefs in a group of people, which I was unconscious of at the time. I have 2 parents that were solidly on their Dharmic path when I was born. They had individuated from the culture already in major ways, yet they were very much still immersed in the culture and were providing a service back to their community in the form of owning health food stores. They were bringing healthy food to their community in the 70s, all the way up to the present today. They are way showers. I was born a way shower. I was showing a different way for a very long time before understanding what that meant. If I were to make an overarching categorization of my trauma in this life, it has been from embodying my own values and beliefs outside of the dominant culture, for my attempt at keeping myself healthy, for keeping myself sane, for keeping myself intact as much as I could. I was born outside of the mainstream health, religious, and government institutions. Because of this, I always felt like I was out but in. I felt like I was in between worlds, in either the dominant culture or out, whatever that means. My mother belongs to the UGB, which stands for the Universal Great Brotherhood, which is a cultural, non-governmental, non-religious, non-profit, non-sectarian organization that was founded in Caracas, Venezuela by Sergei Renaud de la Ferrière. When you open their main cosmic ceremony book, this is the first thing that is written by Sergei. The time has arrived for each person to realize his true mission on the earth. Beings must unite. The time of destructive criticism has come to an end. Religious ideological division disappears with greater speed each day. The idea is, above all, not to channel human thoughts, but to bring the whole human family towards the possibility that will allow each one to be able to express himself in the way that he desires. The primordial goal continues to be to amalgamate the many ideologies into an all, without predicating a new cult, but teaching that through them all they breathe a new unique ideal, which is self-realization. Among the many goals and aims of the Universal Brotherhood is the establishment of tolerance, truth, and peace, while recognizing that the truth is not something exclusive, but that every path, religion, philosophy, culture has a part of the truth. This is one of the most significant parts of my story, because this is what the root system of my mother was made of. The root system of my home. My home, the mother, was a spiritual sanctuary rooted in universal principles. My birth name is Crystal. My home was full of crystals: Nag Champa, white clothing, prayer, meditation, yoga, devotion. I would search for most of my life on the outside for what was already within me and around me. I arrived back right where I began. I was born into what I now understand that I embody. My mother primarily, almost singularly, embodied the innocent archetype, with caregiver being second. This archetype is also known as the child, the youth, utopian, naive, and the mystic. My mother has an intensely straightforward moral compass. She wanted to become a nun at the age of 8. My great aunt was a nun. Her motivations are incredibly pure. She is so sincere. Her heart is so beautiful. She doesn't subscribe to the harshness of the world. My mom is like a hobbit that never left the Shire. She wasn't made for this world. She can see unimaginable beauty in the mundane. Her mind is a magical wonderland. She only needs her spiritual inner world to be happy. She needs very little from the material. It's as if truth is all she knows. I was raised in her field. It was a field of love that was so pure. She loved me so well. I was raised in the field of a specific set of universal principles. I was engulfed in it. It blanketed me. Therefore, I couldn't see it in some way. I searched for most of my life to find spirituality, and it felt like it eluded me. I think that's because it was what I was born into. I had to go deep into the dominant culture for a long time. My biggest traumas came from outside my home, later in my life. I eventually descended down and rose up to embody what was meant for me to be. It was the path I was supposed to take. I am grateful for it now. I am of this world. I know this sounds so lovely, right? Who wouldn't want to be raised by a mother who was kind, gentle, spiritual, and unconditionally loving? My mother was full of so much light that she didn't look at her own shadow. It was suppressed so far down that it felt nowhere in sight. Therefore, I was afraid of my shadow and I didn't examine it till much later. There's a much larger family of origin soul story that has played out that I can't open on this episode though. What I can say is that I am the yin and yang of the family. When I was in grade school, my favorite necklace was the yin yang symbol. I wanted to understand what my necklace meant, but it eluded me. I would ask my father, and his answer would go over my head every single time. I felt frustrated that I couldn't get to know my necklace the way my heart desired to. My authentic, full-range expression of myself scared my mother. She wanted me to exist in just the light. This caused me to feel shame about the expression of my passions, convictions, viewpoints, my desire for justice, for equality, for truth. I had a rawness to how I expressed my truth when I was younger. I owned it. It was unmasked. From this, the core mother wound I acquired was, I am mean. This distortion embedded itself deep inside of me. I now see that my normal expression of self, of fullness, of wholeness, of beauty, of my truth, was really beautiful. It just scared my mom. If I were to paint it in a visual way, it would be like if the dark feminine showed up for a fire ritual inside of a silent meditation retreat. Those energies don't mix in the same room at the same time. I mean, maybe they do actually. What an interesting experience that would be. This core mother wound has been wound within all of my life experiences. It was teaching me day in and day out. It asked me, will you own your truth? Will you sit in the seat of your own power? Will you forge your own path? Will you examine me? I had a very specific day where a mentor of mine pointed out that this energy, this way of being, was my greatest strength. That day, a lifetime of shame washed out of my body. I was led into a deep process that would change everything. Initiations, thresholds, descent, shadow, dark feminine, divine inner union. I was in it. I am now a teacher of these things. I love these things so much. I am a teacher of my yin-yang necklace now. I completed the circle and then forged the gap between the white and black. I didn't just swing the other way. I came into balance. My mother gave me incredible gifts through what she embodied. I inherited aspects of her that live in my heart and soul. She gave me pure light. She gave me incredible tenderness, childlike wonder, innocence, and a compass. I found the beautiful, wild, dark feminine side of me buried under the shame. Oh, I love her. Wholeness. I feel it deep in my bones. Okay, now to my father. He was of the earth. He was a prolific gardener. He loved flowers, specifically tulips, more than anything. He always had his hands in the dirt and maintained our 4-acre property with absolute care. My dad is alive in 84, but can no longer garden. Growing up, my dad endlessly answered my questions about the cosmos, about existence. I feel like I asked him every week, why are we here? I would try so hard to understand his spiritual teachings. He would tell me stories about past lives, reincarnation, and would interpret my dreams extensively. In addition to loving the earth, my dad loved sports. I became an athlete at the age of 8, soccer and softball. That was our greatest connection. There is so much to this part of the story, so I just want to highlight 2 very key points. 1. Sports was the only place within mainstream culture that my warrior and the wild woman archetype were not only accepted but celebrated. This allowed me to survive. I am so grateful for sports. I got to spit, kick, yell, lunge, wrestle, express aggression, and expel a tremendous amount of life force energy. It was like a fire circle without the fire in the circle. This is the place I got to hold the tremendous life force energy that was within me. My dark feminine was alive on the field. This is the place I could express the parts of me that my mother wanted me to repress. It was intense to hold. It's also where I first learned about the unintegrated aspects of my shadow. I would spend 20 years integrating the lessons from the field into my life as an adult. The integrated athlete is one of my strongest parts now. Me wanting to perform on the soccer field for my dad's love would ultimately lead me to master at least 5 professions within my field, which would eventually lead me to be infinitely adaptable and in unwavering devotion to my soul path. I understand discipline so deeply, and now I understand that at the root, discipline is the deepest form of self-love. I have traveled back to my inner child between the age of 14 to 18 more than any other age. Sports felt like it did more harm to me than good before I was able to alchemize and integrate all the aspects of it. The more I have sat with myself during this age, the more I am able to embody the dark feminine, which is a very misunderstood topic. Your dark feminine is not the wounded feminine or your shadow. She is fierce grace and wild liberation. She is the unleashed, full spectrum self. I am going to be creating a podcast episode specifically on this in the future, so this is where I will leave it for now. My father was really good at following his intuition. He intuitively knew I was an artist. He held this thread for me at all times. It was like a flame he wouldn't allow to go out. When he was searching for and helping me select what college to go play soccer at, he made sure they had good art departments, even though he knew I was going to major in business. He just knew in his heart of hearts who I was. That makes me want to cry. I was able to follow a continuous photography and ceramics thread, and it would be my ceramics teacher my senior year in college that would plant a tiny seed inside of me. She saw my sketchbook and said one simple sentence to me: "Have you ever thought about being a textile or graphic designer?" I put that sentence in my pocket for safekeeping. I would later go on to have an almost 20-year career as a graphic designer and creative director. Okay, back to when I was 5. My kindergarten class was performing a school play. The entire grade school was in the gym. It was my turn to say this really simple phrase on the mic, and I blanked out. I was terrified and mortified. That was the beginning of me shutting off my voice, which had to happen. I could not go on the journey to find something that I had not lost. It's been the hardest journey of my entire life to embody my authentic voice, my truth, my purpose. Made it. I really made it. I experienced so many feelings of suppression, shame, grief, rage, and angst surrounding my voice that I will forever, every single day for the rest of my life, feel extreme joy, pride, ecstasy, and liberation every single time I speak. It's such a gift to be able to feel this after going on this really long, painful journey. When I went to write this next section, I first asked my mind what I should say about how my unique voice is constructed. I began to feel a little fuzzy and scattered, and then I remembered my voice. I should ask her what she wants to say about herself. She answered me. My voice is a divine instrument. I made contact with her. I got the sense in my body that she wasn't exactly mine. She showed me how she traverses time and space. She's ancient. She's the wind, fire, a shapeshifter, a non-linear weaver, a spellcaster, an eagle, a bow and arrow. At her heart of hearts, she is a distiller. She breaks things down. She dissects things. She pulls things apart so they can be put back together. She parts the seas to see clear. When she speaks, things loosen. She is soft lightning. My channel, which my voice is a part of, is constructed in the just right way for my soul's purpose. It's naturally, endlessly curious about complex esoteric knowledge and wants to break it down until it's easily understood and digestible. It translates complexity into simplicity. It moves energy in very multifaceted ways. It breathes light into distortion. It is dense but simple. It is loving. To begin to speak, to open my channel, I had to work through my material, which was a lot of inner child work, shadow work, deconditioning, and expansion work. I had to make contact with my voice. I had to learn and accept how I was constructed. I had to remember my purpose, and then begin to embody that purpose before I could speak from deep within the well of my truth, from my soul. This is why it took me so long to finally be able to speak. I was waiting till the precise moment that I was actually ready. I remember the day. I knew. I could just feel it. I had arrived. I am going to take you back to one more memory today. Actually, it's more of an experience and how it was a window into my future. My favorite movie as a child was The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I felt so much angst that the magical land of Narnia wasn't real. I had such a deep craving to be in the movie, to be able to walk through the wardrobe, to meet Mr. Tumnus. I had an ongoing, unrelenting desire to experience magic. It always felt out of reach, though. I would witness someone else talk about their faith, about God, miracles, spirituality, and I could not feel it. My life felt void of magic. And I'm not saying I didn't have magical moments in my life that I loved. I'm talking about divine magic. About feeling God, the divine, deep within my heart and body. Then one day, a friend of mine introduced me to microdosing. It took a few weeks, but I began to feel like life was more magical, that nature was more beautiful. Then one day, I heard Aubrey Marcus talk about his experience of doing ayahuasca at Soltara. I knew so deeply in that moment that I was going to go. I had known about ayahuasca for almost 15 years before I was actually ready to say yes. Those old wooden doors of the Maloka, they were the wardrobe. I entered the land of magic forever. I went from nothing to everything in one fell swoop. How would I be able to help people traverse the path from ego to soul if I had not felt the edges of the pendulum and traversed every inch of the in-between? I wasn't supposed to feel magic like my mother did as a child. I was supposed to find it later in my life. And this has allowed me to have immense, unwavering, childlike love for the soul path now. There is so much more to my Dharma story that I will share another time. I find it difficult to write a summary paragraph here. I feel how it has created pressure in my body. I release it and then write whatever wants to come out. It would be that every experience we have here on this earth plane is a teacher. We are here to learn. The heartbreaking experiences, the seemingly mundane experiences, the ecstatic experiences of your life are full of extraordinary insight, gifts, and clues. If you learn to listen and see, you can hear and make deep contact with your soul. You can indeed go back and work with your younger self, clear energy, reparent yourself, change your understanding of your life, and walk your dharmic path if you so choose. I am a Dharma coach, a medicine woman, a multidisciplinary artist. I am so honored to guide humans through the inner workings of energy, alchemy, blueprint translation, expansion, and co-creation. I am so grateful for you listening to this story. The fact that this podcast exists and is published feels surreal to me. This is real. I did it. I really did it. I found myself, my voice, my Dharma, my medicine. This is really true. I am exactly here where I am. Thank you for sitting around the fire with me. Till next time.